everybody. Hope you're doing well. I wanted to touch base with you. Again, just let you see my face, hear my voice. Sometimes that's a good thing to do in these online classes to remind you that we are connected. But I wanted to give you just a little bit of food for thought as we just had Valentine's Day on Friday, and today is President's Day. And sometimes it's easy for early childhood educators to plan activities or curriculum around holidays. But I want to give you some things to think about when it comes to that. We want to ensure that everything you're doing has a purpose, right? Has a goal in mind for children. Just because it's cute doesn't make it developmentally appropriate. And if we go back and remember those three components of developmentally appropriate practices, we want to make sure that what we're doing is age appropriate, individually appropriate, and culturally appropriate. And sometimes what we do for holidays in early childhood classrooms is not developmentally appropriate. So here's an example of a resource you can use when it comes to that. This is from NAEYC. And just a blog on anti-bias education and holidays, and helping us understand that we are to make thoughtful decisions when it comes to this. That sometimes we don't all do things the same way, and that's okay, as long as we don't assume that everybody does celebrate the way that we do. I particularly like this statement that secularized or commercialized versions of holidays are not culturally or religiously neutral. So that being said, that perhaps some things that we can avoid would be all of those commercialized things. So let me tell you about an experience that I had on Friday. I was in a preschool classroom, and the children had all brought in the Valentines that you get, from Walmart or Dollar Tree or whatever. And they sat in a circle at the rug. I think there were 14 children there that day. And they also each had this envelope type thing that they had made. And one by one, what they did was each child stood up and one by one went around and placed a Valentine in their peer's little Valentine box. And that's literally all they did. There was no conversation. There was no Happy Valentine's Day, eye contact, and a thank you response. There was no reading the Valentines. There was no looking at the names. And after about 20 minutes, I left, and they were only about halfway finished. So let's think about that. There was nothing really appropriate about that, because there was no learning involved, and it was taking way too long, because they were just sitting, waiting for their one turn to go around the circle. And once the Valentine was put in the little box, the children were then still just sitting. They weren't opening the Valentines or looking at them. So I was just really concerned that this was lasting way too long. And, this was not any of you by any means. If you remember, I live far away from you guys, but things like this tend to happen in early childhood classrooms. So we want to just make sure that what we're doing is developmentally appropriate. So we could do things for holidays by inviting families in, having them share what they do, celebrate the family, celebrate their traditions, and not just necessarily what Walmart or the Dollar Tree says that we ought to be doing. So here's some more of this blog. We want to pay attention to the language we use. Create something new or unique, something special just for your class or your school. help children understand when others can't or don't want to participate, that that's okay. And I will say that was one really good thing that I did observe last Friday. There were 2 children who did not want to participate, and they didn't have to. They went and they played in the kitchen area, the dramatic play area. So they were not forced to participate, but that was their choice. It wasn't because of any parents' reason, family reason, or religious reason. It was just too long of an activity. Here's another quick read from NAUIC on celebrating holidays. You know, we want to look for programs that have these things, that everybody's represented, that we look at the daily lives of children and families and staff work together to plan these things. And we want to focus on meaningful ways to celebrate holidays without spending money. And that can certainly be done. But again, think about what standard, what are you meeting from Foundations of Early Learning through these activities? Are you meeting any goals? Are there any standards being met through these activities? And if it's just something to do just because you feel like you have to because it's a holiday, then let's rethink it. Let's think about, are the children interested in it? You know, is it developmentally appropriate? All right. So just a little food for thought on holidays in the early childhood classroom. Bye.